With YouTube demonetizing independent media, please consider becoming a patron today for just $1 per month. Link below. I'm a huge fan of true crime, and I always love to see a murderer who thinks that they are never going to get busted get got. So it is my pleasure to bring to you the story about the capture of the alleged Golden State Killer. Now, the Golden State Killer terrorized the state of California throughout the 1970s and 1980s. First, he killed in Southern California, and then he moved north to the Bay Area near San Francisco in order to strike again. Now, at the time of this recording, he is believed to have murdered 12 people in total, raped at least 50 women, and burglarized hundreds of homes during those 2 decades, the 70s and the 80s. Now, one of his signature calling cards was the elaborate diamond knot that he would use to restrain his victims, which at first got him dubbed the Diamond Knot Killer. And then he was referred to as the East Area Rapist, as well as the original Night Stalker. But only recently did he get dubbed the Golden State Killer, and the name stuck. Now, police say that they've arrested a man that they believe to be the GSK. This is 72-year-old Joseph James DeAngelo, who was arrested in Sacramento at around 2:30 a.m. this morning and was charged with 2 counts of murder. Far cry from the 12, but it's a start. And so far, he's been living in the same suburban home since 1983. It goes without saying that the neighbors were understandably shocked that the old curmudgeon guy was a killer. Now, the reason why the GSK was able to stay hidden for decades was because he used to be a cop. DeAngelo used to work with the Auburn Police Department until 1979, when he was fired for shoplifting a hammer and a can of dog repellent from a drugstore. And interestingly enough, he would actually taunt the police during his rampage of crimes. Frequently, he would call into the Sacramento PD to claim that he was the East Side Rapist and to boast about how they couldn't catch him. So it appears to me that he ultimately liked the name the East Side Rapist. But what did catch him was the DNA he left behind. 4 decades after his crime spree began, Joseph DeAngelo probably thought he got away with it, and probably thought that some of the discarded DNA he left behind wouldn't be what detectives found in order to bring him to justice. But they did, and now he might be going away for a very, very, very long time. And that's the interesting situation that we find ourselves in with this particular story. Here's a guy that 4 decades ago went on a brutal spree throughout the state of California. 12 deaths, 50 rapes, tons and tons and tons of burglaries, and he knew how to get away with it. And the reason why was because he knew what the cops did in order to get around it. And I find it funny because we live in an era right now where one of the police's greatest tool for catching killers, and I'm not even kidding when I say this, is actual procedural television, like detective shows, CSI Miami, CSI in general, Law and Order, Special Victims Unit. All of those things are ultimately really helpful to police. And the reason why is because everything you see on there is usually not 100% accurate. A couple years ago, I was very blessed to be able to take a 2-day homicide writers course in Los Angeles. I was able to go and be taught by a 27-year detective of the San Bernardino Police Department about all the ins and outs of what goes on with solving a crime, being a detective, and how most television gets it wrong. And there are so many things that they get wrong that ultimately criminals who probably think that this is exactly what happens, that what they see on TV is 100% real, is ultimately what's going to allow them to get away with it. Truth be told, that's not the case at all. And the police are actually, they look forward to criminals being dumb and thinking that what you see on TV is ultimately going to be what brings them down. It just goes to show you that ultimately television is not really the best at all for everybody. Now, another interesting part of this story is that it went cold for a long time. That's why it took so long for DeAngelo to be caught by the authorities. But one of the biggest influences of this was a true crime book written by Michelle McNamara back in 2016 that actually ended up kind of revitalizing this particular case, or at least the interest in this case from cold case detectives. She dubbed him the Golden State Killer, and that's why it's stuck since then. There was a documentary about the Golden State Killer that followed the release of the book, and unfortunately Michelle passed away before the book even came out. Her husband, Patton Oswalt, helped get it through over the finish line, and now he can actually look back on his wife's memory to know that this is one of the things that really helped bring this person to justice. In fact, in a Reddit AMA before her death, Michelle had been asked about which one of her true crime coverings would actually result in a capture. And she says that it would be the Golden State Killer. And what I find to be very funny is the fact that DNA is now being used more than ever in order to bring a lot of these criminals from the past to justice. This is why cold case files are so interesting and so fascinating to me. So at the end of the day, we have an alleged murderer, a man who's been on the run for almost 40 years, a former cop who knew the game, who knew how to play it well, and ended up evading capture for a long time. Even though this dude would call the police to torment them, not just on one occasion, we're talking over the span of years, would he contact the Sacramento Police Department in order to basically be like, neener, 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 you're never gonna get me. And what it took was a true crime reporter, a novel, a documentary, and the Sacramento Police Department issuing a statement 2 years ago, or I should say a press conference 2 years ago, that they were going to be reopening the case and going into it from a cold case perspective, as well as offering $50,000 for whoever can help bring this man to justice. Now, I don't know if anyone did help kick that in, but the way that it comes across is that discarded DNA that they had collected all those years ago, that they were never able to fully, link to Joseph DeAngelo, was finally able to be used. And according to the Sacramento District Attorney, she did make the claim that this just basically solidified what they already knew, that they already had the idea that this dude right here was the killer, but they just needed the DNA evidence to basically make it a case closed. And so now we wait for the trial. Now we wait for whatever happens next. And I'm hoping that whatever victims are still there, whatever victims are still around, can look at this and finally realize that a portion of their life, if he is in fact the killer, again, it's all alleged at this point, can rest easy knowing that this man, the curmudgeon-y old guy who neighbors said would curse out people on his lawn, is now behind bars for being one of the worst offenders in California's history. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been the Mundane Matt channel. Was there any more interesting details about this particular killer that I missed, that I overlooked here? Some things that you might find interesting to share with the chat below. Be sure to do that. Anyway, if you guys haven't already, please thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, share this around, or maybe consider Patreon for $1. That's a good way right now. And if you just want to watch more from me, and I hope you do, you can do so right now. Hey, thank you very much for watching the video. Be sure to hit that subscribe, click on that bell, and follow me on social media. It's the best way to stay up to date on all things Mundane Matt, as well as check out 3 Buck Theater and the Russell podcast, streaming Sunday through Thursday, 9:30 p.m. on russell.net. Thanks very much and have a great day.